The Quran, which is the holy book of the Muslims, have had received much attention throughout history. Some of the early on attention is very important for Muslims and non-Muslims to know about, specifically how the Quran, this holy book, was collected into the single book. Now, generally speaking, the development of the collection of the Quran has spanned since the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, until today. However, during the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, he made sure before he passed on to have sat with the companions and have recited the Quran from the beginning to the very end, organizing the different chapters and the different verses. This specific phase is considered the first phase of the collection of the Quran. And the companions have written the Quran, all of the Quran, in different pieces of paper and different pieces of animal skin and different pieces of bones and rocks and whatnot. And many of them have memorized it cover to cover, basically from the beginning to the very end. Now, during the time of the successor of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the very first successor, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the first Khalifa, the first caliphate in the Islamic history, what happened is that there were quite a bit of mutiny within the Arabian Peninsula, as well as from external sources. So many of the companions that have memorized the Quran and have memorized this holy book have participated in these battles, and hence many of them died. So as Siddiq ruled over the Muslims. And best friends of Abu Bakr, Umar al-Khattab, who became the second successor of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he approached Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and he suggested that he collects the whole Quran in a single book. So instead of it being written in different on different sheets and different animal skins and just being memorized in people's hearts and minds, he said, right now many people of those memorizers are dying. They're being killed by those different mutinies that are happening in the Arabian Peninsula that we have to defend against. Now, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq initially resisted the collection of the Quran. He said, how can I do something that the Prophet, peace be upon him, did not do? Like, why would I put it in a single book? The Prophet, peace be upon him, yes, he sat with all the companions who have written it, but he didn't put it in a single book. He made sure that everybody has written it in different pieces, as well as everybody memorized it, and that's how they transmitted this Quran. But Umar al-Khattab continued to come back to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq recommending this. And then eventually Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he did see eye to eye with Umar al-Khattab, and he said, okay, let's do that. Now, this is not an easy task because this is the Quran, and this collection, once it happens, it's going to be the reference for both Muslims as well as non-Muslims. So everybody in the Islamic Empire or in the Islamic Kingdom, in the Islamic Ummah, will be using this copy, which means that it has to be done very meticulously, and it has to be verified as well multiple times. So who did he appoint for that? He appointed for that one young companion, and that companion was a very wise person, a very intelligent person, a very hardworking person, and a very young person. And this young age really kept him motivated to finish this task, because it's not an easy task. And that companion is Zayd ibn Thabit al-Ansari. Zayd ibn Thabit al-Ansari, radiyallahu anhu, may God be pleased with him. Now, Zayd ibn Thabit, when he heard that, he said, if Abu Bakr tasked me with moving the whole mountain, Mount Uhud, from one place to another, by myself, that would have been easier than this task that he had given me. But anyhow, since he was appointed for this task, he did it and he started with it. And he had a very articulate way of collecting all those pieces and all those papers and these sheets and the different bones. And then he met with the companions, especially the ones that are memorizers. Every single word that he put in the same order that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, has put it in. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, he recited with the companions after the Quran was complete multiple times in order to make sure that they've gotten the order right, they've gotten the verses right, they've gotten the chapters right, but nobody has written it cover to cover. And there were many companions that have taken this basically license, if you will, from this ijaza from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So Zayd ibn Thabit, he did that, and he spent a long time performing this task, and he managed to do it. And once he did that, he put them in sheets, and basically that was the first mushaf, the first kind of book that contained the whole Quran in the order that was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or in the order that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, set before his passing on. Now, this was the second collection of the Quran. So the first one was the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, basically orating the Quran and listening to the companions, as well as making sure that they have written it with him. And the second one is during the time of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And the third one came during the time of Uthman ibn Affan, who is the third caliphate of the Islamic Empire. And his story is a bit different than Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr collected the Quran because of the concern that it might be lost due to the death of the memorizers of the Quran. Uthman ibn Affan was almost the opposite. There were a lot of memorizers, and they were reciting the Quran on different ahruf as well as in different qira'at, which are authentic. So people think that because there are different modes of recitations, that means the Quran is different, or it's different Qurans. No, it's not different Qurans. It's the same Quran. However, the Prophet, peace be upon him, had different recitations of the Quran. So, for example, if we look at the first chapter in the Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha, one of the verses is known as Maliki Yawmiddin, the owner of the day of judgment. And in another recitation, it's read as Maliki Yawmiddin. Also, it means the owner of the day of judgment. Now, the difference between Malik and Malik, linguistically, if you put those together, it gives you the full power of what it means to be the owner of the day of judgment. And both of these recitations these modes of recitations are correct. Now, during the time of Uthman ibn Affan, the third caliphate, the Islamic Empire expanded so much. So when people were trying to recite the Quran and copy it and do all of that, not everybody had that knowledge that was in Medina, in the city of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So one of the companions in one of the battles, he noticed in the campus of the Muslims that people were arguing about which mode of recitation is correct. So he sent to Uthman ibn Affan and he told him, I ask you to kind of save this nation and make sure to address this issue. So what Uthman ibn Affan did is that he brought in a few companions. One of them is the companion who collected the Quran in the time of the Prophet, in the time of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the first caliphate. And he made them make copies of the Quran, multiple copies, and the scholars differed how many copies. Was it 3, 4, 5? There were exact copies, and then he sent these copies to the different regions in the world, and he told them, use this as a reference. So any written things that you have, any documents that you had, any ways that you have heard, make sure that you reference it with this copy, because this copy is the authentic copy. And the way he did it is that he went to Hafsa. Hafsa was the daughter of the second caliphate, Umar al-Khattab, and she inherited the Mus'haf, the Quran or the book that was collected by Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. So he went to her and he said, "Can we please borrow this copy from you and we'll return it?" And he borrowed this copy, and then he collected those very knowledgeable companions, the ones that are scholars in the Quran, and he told them, "Make copies of this one because we need to send it out." And then after they made the copies, they returned it. They returned the Quran to, or that Mus'haf to, Hafsa bint Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anha wa anhum ajma'in. So this is in a nutshell. We haven't even dived, you know, anywhere near the history and the articulation of how the Quran was collected and developed, and how the letters, the Arabic letters, how they were written before, and adding the period, and then adding the tashkil. The tashkil is the vowelization or vowelization on top of the letters, and then the collection later on in contemporary time and history, by some of the institutions like the King Fahd institution for the printing of the Quran in Saudi Arabia. We haven't even scratched the surface yet about these things, but in the early history of Islam, because a lot of people have questions about this stuff, this what I talked about right now just gives a bit of an overview of what happened with the Quran and how it arrived to us. It's also important to note that people memorize the Quran cover to cover, and the way they memorize it, they get ijaza, or what's called licensure. Their teacher, who got it from their teacher, who got it from their teacher, all the way up to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And this narration, this chain of narration, is documented. So anybody who gets that ijaza or that license, they get a piece of paper that is signed, and it has the full lineage of who received the first caliphate in the Islamic Empire.